welcome to another video on my channel. Today we're going to be exploring what happens when one of the FBI's sharpest minds hunts one of fiction's most intelligent killers. We're going to be looking at Special Agent Frank Lundy trying to capture Dr. Hannibal Lecter of the TV series Hannibal. And it's about whether Lundy's data-driven hunt could corner a predator who killed us just style and savagery as Hannibal, because that's what he is. He killed in style, but is also brutal. So quickly we'll go over who these two are. Frank Lundy is a career profiler, methodical, successful. He basically goes around the United States tracking whichever serial killer is very active at the time. In this Dexter series, we saw the Bay Harbor Butcher case and the Trinity Killer case. And Hannibal Lecter, the Chesapeake Ripper, is a brilliant psychiatrist, cannibal, highly intelligent, and he kills those who he deems rude. So, Frank Lundy has a lot of resources to his advantage. He has full databases, subpoenas, his jurisdiction over all 50 states. He can do whatever he wants, get anything he wants. I believe Lundy's strengths are instinct and cunning. He can read people very well, as we saw when he first met Arthur Mitchell coming out of that building. He dictated a note that he's kind of an interesting person to meet, and he has patience to connect cases across years, which is also what he did with the Trinity case. There was kind of cases in Denver, San Francisco, and then Miami, loads of other cities too. But his weakness is that he didn't catch Dexter, the Bay Harbor Butcher, when he was right under his nose and working in Miami Metro. And Hannibal, his MO in the series is he kills with surgical precision always. He often takes out body parts to eat. And he selects his victims, I presume, don't know when he moved to the States. But for his Chesapeake Ripper kills, he basically, if he interacts with anyone rude, he asks for their business card and then takes it out randomly and goes and rippers them. And when he was in Florence, the Monster of Florence, Pazzi noted that he was obsessed with all these ancient drawings and would almost try and recreate them with his victims and kind of show them in a theatrical kind of way, which is that's the way Hannibal thinks. He just wants to make a show. He thinks he's the most intelligent person on this planet and just wants to tell you that. That's why he loves toying with law enforcement. And Hannibal is very hard to catch because it would take a while, I believe, for Lundy and the FBI to find a correlation between all the victims. And he just leaves the crime scene to statements, but he cleans traces. He leaves no evidence. And let's say that in this show, that he wasn't brought into the FBI, they show, but we know that in the series Hannibal, he's brought in to help Will Graham. And let's say he's just a normal doctor, but I believe he still has the level of intelligence to know how to leave zero trace. And he also blends into high society in Baltimore, Maryland, and has lots of connections. His only tell would probably be, they'd probably establish connections between all these victims, and had they met this one person, which would possibly be Hannibal. And the business card thing, it's a stretch, but they could catch it. Was there a person who always asked for business cards? It's a stretch, but it's possible. But the killer like Hannibal, it's brutally difficult to catch him. And this isn't like the Butcher case or the Trinity case for Lundy, because Hannibal tries to direct. In the series Hannibal, he directs the Chesapeake Ripper and Minnesota Strike investigation. And he has charm. He can manipulate the whole thing. He has institutional influence. He can block warrants, he can sway juries, he can activate misdirection, he framed others a lot, destroy evidence. He's a tough killer to catch, no doubt about it. Lundy's advantage is that I think he would realize quickly that he's facing a monster that's probably worse than Trinity or the Butcher, because Trinity and the Butcher had clear. They quickly deduced that the Butcher killed killers and Trinity had the family thing, whereas Hannibal just goes around just causing chaos. And Lundy, I think Lundy's profiling skills would see that this is just an intellectual who just wants to show off. And so how would Frank Lundy go about this? First of all, he'd build a huge database of these victims, find out everything about them. He'd tag anomalies, kind of these surgical incisions that are just too clean and perfect, the organ removal, that like this is clearly a professional. And then at first there might be confusion about what they're doing with the organs, but then Lundy has the intelligence to know that human beings can do anything, so he'd know that this guy's eating them. And he would narrow the potential suspect pool to medical professionals, and it could be anyone that had to do with surgery. And he might notice the culinary connection also. There could be little bits of food or spice somewhere on these bodies. And just in 2025, let's say this happened in 2025, the technology is good enough that a little bit of biological evidence like that, they can use that, find out where it's bought and all this kind of stuff. And then find out some of these victim connections, that some might have been his patients or dinner guests. And like, there might be, if it's more than 2 or 3, because Lundy would meet Hannibal and it become clear that he's quite an interesting person. And we saw with Trinity and Lundy that Lundy noted immediately how Arthur was kind of strange. And I think he did the same with Hannibal. That Hannibal is just too perfect. Another forensic thing, there just could be like anything unique, these little bits of material that could be unique to Hannibal's area where he lives. And again, they just pull out all the stops. They'd identified that they build a profile that this is a high society surgeon who loves culture, linguist, all this kind of stuff. And they target the high-end wine purchases, spice purchases, and they probably pull Hannibal's kind of rubbish and stuff and just try and find anything, because once they nail down the profile, Hannibal is such an obvious one because he has everything. The intelligence, the nous, and Lundy would realise who Hannibal is. I think he'd look at where he lived before in his life and find out that he's killed before. He'd probably get in touch with other countries' police and stuff like that. And so I think Lundy would keep all interactions purely investigative, just to let him know what's going on. I think he'd always find the forensics, because with Hannibal there's not much circumstantial stuff. He's very good at covering his tracks. You just stick to the forensic evidence they can get. And for the likely outcomes, let's go back to the start. So with the Chesapeake Ripper case, the way Frank Lundy would approach it would be, this is a unique type of killer, and I think that would excite him, that would mentally stimulate him. That he'd know that the killer is somewhere in this area of the United States. And I think this would allow him to identify Hannibal as a suspect, first of all, because I do believe he would identify Hannibal eventually. And I think that if Hannibal knows that investigation is going on, I don't think he'd be caught, because he can't be caught really. I think if Hannibal knows it's going on, he'd just flee. But if he doesn't somehow, which is unlikely because it's Hannibal, there would be a long legal battle, and Hannibal would probably, it's hard to know, he probably would still get, prosecuted, but it'd be very cushy circumstances because he's Hannibal. Because in the Hannibal series, it's hard to know because he only gets captured because he gives himself up. He really just run rings around Jack Crawford, Will Graham, the FBI. But I don't know what that happened with Frank Lundy. I think Lundy's pretty sharp. And yeah. But honestly, I'd say the most likely outcome is Hannibal detects the investigation early, manipulates the collapse, frames someone, and escapes. That's really the most likely outcome, in my opinion, because Hannibal in the TV series is formidable, absolutely formidable as the Chesapeake Ripper. So the real tipping point is whether Hannibal knows, because once Hannibal knows about something, he's unstoppable. They just have to surprise him. They'd have to sneak up on him. That's the only way to catch Hannibal Lecter, I believe. Frank Lundy does have a better chance than most detectives, but Hannibal's Hannibal, and I do think Frank Lundy wouldn't be able to stop Hannibal Lecter. I really would. So thank you for watching that video. Let me know if there's any other detectives you want to see catch Hannibal, and like and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching.